Hey everybody, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and this channel is all about running great one-shot adventures, but also short campaigns. And today we're heading deep into the Shudder Mountains to review an adventure that's dripping with dark magic and Appalachian horror, Sour Spring Hollow. Now, those of you who know this channel know that I am a huge fan of dungeon crawl classics, because it constantly subverts typical fantasy tropes in its adventures. Instead of your orcs and goblins, DCC adventures give you bizarre monsters, demons with insane motivations, and settings for first-level characters that in other games would be way more appropriate for epic legendary heroes. Now, DCC doesn't have a standard campaign setting. Its adventures are only loosely connected. For many GMs, this is just fine because you can make up your own world, or you can sew those many adventures together in a unique way to make a campaign that really fits your players. But DCC's The Chained Coffin supplement is different. It brings a campaign setting to DCC, a unique one that blends Appalachian folklore, fantasy, and horror into one really compelling world. It's filled with dark woods, silver charms, and ancient mountain magic. Regardless of whether you play DCC or some other fantasy game, the Shudder Mountains setting is one you should check out if you're looking to entertain your players with something that feels a little different. And what you get in the Chained Coffin is the Shudder Mountains setting, some minor new rules, and several adventures that showcase the feel that the author was going for in that setting. I think it's really important that campaign settings include sample adventures. Otherwise, I always find it's a little difficult to know where to get started. So gold star for Goodman Games for including so many adventures here in their campaign setting. Sour Spring Hollow is the first adventure in the book, a funnel adventure where a group of zero-level peasants stumble onto an old abandoned farm, and they find themselves trapped in a dimension haunted by vengeful ghosts, a murdered priestess, and a horrifying cornfield that's filled with some very dark and evil secrets. But there are a lot of funnel adventures for DCC, and as a GM, you only get one to kick off your campaign. So is Sour Spring Hollow a great choice? Is it filled with enough danger and surprises that separate it out from all those other great DCC adventures? Does it showcase the horror and weirdness of the Shudder Mountains setting in a way that will hook your players? Well, before we all take a swig of stump whiskey together and head into the Hollow to find out, I'll warn you that there are some spoilers ahead. So if you're planning to play in this adventure or even in the Shudder Mountains setting, you might want to stop now, grab a lucky rabbit's foot, and tell your GM to go watch this video instead. All right, here we go. Sour Spring Hollow is a zero-level funnel written by veteran DCC writer Michael Curtis. It's designed for about 15 to 20 hapless peasants, or as we call them in the Shudder Mountains, Shudfolk. This adventure easily fits into a single session. I've run it a few times. I can usually do it in 2 hours, or maybe 3 if I have a little more time. The adventure kicks off at a wedding. The PCs are invited guests to a big country celebration. I like this opening because it lets you describe the setting of the Shudder Mountains right away. This isn't a medieval wedding. This is a down-home hootenanny wedding with handmade quilts by Grammy as wedding gifts, guests teaming up to pull stumps out of the ground together, dancing and hollering, and soon homemade whiskeys being passed around among the guests. What the PCs don't know, however, is that some of this whiskey has been accidentally spiked with witch liquor, a special brew made from the supposedly magic streams near the old Hobb farm. The farm's been abandoned for decades, ever since a priestess went there and confronted the owners, the Hobbs, who were said to be practicing dark magic and worshiping evil spirits. No one knows exactly what happened during that confrontation, but ever since, the Hobbs and the priestess were never seen again. Well, the PCs accidentally imbibe some of this witch liquor from the Hobb farm, and they wake up with a hangover, and worse, they're in the middle of the old Hobb farm with no sign of the wedding or anybody else nearby. The sky is a weird yellow color, and beyond the farm is a vast forest on one side and an endless cornfield on the other. And before the PCs know what to do, within moments they're attacked by horrifying phantoms from the forest. Their eyes are glowing green, their hands are reaching out to murder these visitors to the farm. These are the ghosts of the old Hobbs, and the phantoms here are not really meant to be fought. They're immune to non-magical weapons, and one touch is enough to kill most of these zero-level PCs. And when the phantoms kill someone, it is horrifying. Their flesh just melts from their bones, drying out. The blood from the victim soaks into the phantom, and what's left of their body just collapses into leathery corn husks. It's really gross, evocative, and it will warn your players that this adventure means business. Fortunately, the phantoms only attack for 3 rounds before disappearing back into the forest, although they also won't chase PCs who run for cover in some of the farm's various structures. But the phantoms will be back every 30 to 40 minutes or so, always heralded by a weird bird cry, so the timer is on. When I run this, I always lose track of the phantoms, so I actually make this a real-time thing where they do come back every 30 to 40 minutes of real time. Maybe I've been playing too much Shadow Dark, but I just set the clock on my phone and I find it's much easier to keep track of. There's also a cool feature in this adventure that anytime a PC dies, and this will happen a lot, it's a funnel adventure, the group will find a husk doll made from corn sometime later in the adventure shaped like that PC. They're creepy little dolls that even wear the same rough clothes as that dead PC. Your players will likely find this very disturbing, and some of them will no doubt end up collecting the dolls, which is a really terrible idea that I'll talk about in a little bit. The PCs are actually in a pocket dimension, so there's no escaping the Hobb farm. If the PCs wander out into the forest, they'll wander around for an hour or so before getting themselves turned around and ending up back at the farm. The only way to escape is to cleanse the farm by finishing the exorcism that was started by that cleric, her name was Shirla Ray, that she began years ago and will require the PCs to find her holy symbol and her corpse. But to even figure all that out, the PCs will need to explore the farm and discover its secrets. This is an open-ended exploration, but there are only a few handful of locations at the farm for the players to explore. 4 old cabins, a well, a graveyard, and the cornfield itself. The old cabins are right out of a horror movie. Well, each one is sort of out of its own horror movie. One of the old buildings, and my favorite, is actually alive and will literally eat people who walk into it. This is so much fun. When I last ran this adventure, one of my players decided to run for cover from the phantoms right away. He picked a random building to hide in, and then he literally stood at the window and mocked the other players for being stupid enough to fight the phantoms, laughing at each person as they were killed every turn. And then, well, the cabin came to life and mulched him with its giant teeth. Sorry boys, you got them phantoms to deal with, and yes, I locked the door, but you have fun while I'm enjoying my nice new cabin. Was it unfair? Maybe a little bit, but classic DCC moment. Another cabin was the home of the sorcerer who led the clan, Pa Hobb. And the PCs can find the cleric's old walking stick in there, broken in 2, which can still damage the phantoms. Another cabin has some evil tusked hounds under the floorboards who will burst in from all sides to devour the PCs. It's like a little zombie movie that plays out in there. And another cabin was once occupied by a little girl, and she has these kid-drawn pictures that show exactly what happened at the farm when the priestess Shylorilla arrived there to confront the Hobbs. She had her stick broken in half, and one of the Hobbs threw her holy symbol down the well, and then she was sacrificed at the top of a scarecrow pole in the middle of the cornfield. This is all a very key clue as to what happened. I wish the adventure included handouts of these drawings because they are absolutely critical for your players to understand how to escape the farm, but I made some of my own that you can download on my website. I'll put the link in the description below. I also made this little girl's cabin a little haunted. Like suddenly in the middle of the exploration, the fireplace in the room burns to life and one of the drawings floats off the wall and starts scuttling towards the fire as if the ghosts of the Hobbs were trying to burn the evidence of what happened. This will make your players pay more attention, and honestly, the creepier you can make this adventure, the better. But the cabins are also useful because the PCs, who probably arrived to the farm mostly unarmed, they were at a wedding after all, they can equip themselves with reasonable weapons and equipment, things like hatchets and knives and torches. Not that weapons will help you much in this adventure, but hey, it'll make your players feel better. And there's also a hidden spell book in one of the cabins, which, while the spells themselves are probably not going to be useful to 0-level characters, there's a folk ritual or two that the players might have a chance of casting. Folk rituals are sort of lesser magic spells that anybody can cast in the Shudder Mountains. There's rules for them in the book. Climbing down the well will let the PCs find the priestess's holy symbol. The well leads to a small cave and a creature called a deadfall which lives there. It's a tangle of sticks and wood and sharp branches, and it can easily tear the PCs apart. This thing is pretty tough. Make sure you as a GM take your time with this cave. First, make sure you describe it as tight enough that only 1 or 2 characters can fit down there since it's littered with branches and old rotting brambles. Then describe how some of the branches behind them creak or rustle just out of sight. And then have one of the PCs, the one with the lowest luck of course, trip or get stuck on a sharp branch, and then have the deadfall emerge from the walls, grab that PC and try to eviscerate him. Running this cave like a horror scene is really the key to making it work. The cornfield is where the priestess was sacrificed, and her bones are still underneath the old scarecrow pole that's in the middle of it. If the PCs have acquired that holy symbol, the evil of the Hobbs will bring those corn husk dolls to life to attack the PCs. The adventure mostly counts on one of the players collecting those dolls for this to work, but if your players are too cautious and don't collect them, then my advice is to place a few of those dolls here in the cornfield for them to find, and that way they can still come to life and make this end a little bit more challenging for the players in case they were too scared to pick them up. It's also important not to miss the detail here that the priestess's remains, those bones, has one of her bony hands like reaching out of the ground towards the sky. This is how the players are supposed to figure out to place the holy symbol back into her hand. If you miss this detail, the players may not think to do that. They may not know what to do. I made that mistake. I kind of had to retcon the bones a little bit to guide them along a little bit, but just don't make that same mistake. Note that how her hand's positioned. But with the holy symbol back in her hand, thunder cracks and pure rain begins to fall down on the farm. Knowing that their time is at an end, the phantoms rush the PCs. But after 3 rounds, the rain will dissolve them into nothingness. The skies will clear, and the PCs have escaped the pocket dimension, finding themselves in the ruins of the old Hob farm, but it's now cleansed of evil. And that's Sour Spring Hollow. So what do I think? Overall, I found Sour Spring Hollow is a fantastic way to kick off a Shudder Mountain campaign. It's lethal the way you want a funnel to be, and its horror-themed trappings make it feel different from many other DCC adventures. In fact, especially because it's a little open-ended, it feels closer to a Call of Cthulhu adventure, with the PCs having to investigate the farm, discover its history, and then complete a ritual to end the curse before they're overwhelmed by evil. But instead of losing sanity, many peasants will lose their lives instead. I don't have many criticisms of this adventure, and when that's the case, I like to reach out to other GMs who've run it to figure out maybe I missed something. So I talked to 2 other GMs who've run Sour Spring Hollow, and they pointed out some interesting issues that I have not encountered. One GM said that his players went down the well right away. It was the first thing they did after the Phantom encounter. They found the holy symbol, and then they randomly decided to explore the cornfield, and they basically shortcut the whole adventure. My solve for this is pretty easy, actually. Just make that well scary when you first describe it, have weird groaning noises and rustling sounds come from down there. So the PCs don't really want to go into it until they discover the drawings in that one cabin that let them know that the symbol is down there and they have to take a risk to go find it. The other GM actually had the opposite problem. His players never figured out that the holy symbol was in the well, and so even when they went down there, they didn't search for it. I think that this is easy to solve too. First, like I pointed out before, use handouts for the drawings. This really reinforces to your players that this story is important. Second, while the adventure calls for a pretty easy intelligence check to find the holy symbol in the sand at the bottom of the well, just move the holy symbol so that it's like obviously stuck into the brambles of that deadfall creature, making it easier to discover. Just in case one or two of your players just make really horrible rolls, you don't want to prevent them from finding that clue. But overall, this is one of my favorite DCC funnel adventures. It feels very different, and it's perfect if you're looking to kick off a campaign with something a little spookier. It plays more like a dark fairy tale than a typical dungeon crawl. But if you've run this adventure, or if you've had a PC die by house consumption, I'd love to hear that story. Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you want more DCC reviews like this one. It really helps the channel, and if you don't, well, I'll send that house after you. Until next time, I'm JC, and just remember, no matter how fun the wedding is, always read the label before you drink the stump whiskey.
Where the dead come walking from the woods when the wicked bird cries so. If a stranger offers stump whiskey, brother, let that bottle go. 'Cause you might wake up in South Spring Hollow and never make it home.